When you go to a park, it's nice to have a bunch of coasters. If a park is that loaded, usually they have a lot of not so good ones. So really, it boils down to a couple that you really want to ride over and over again. A few years ago, I went over all the 1-2 punches in North America, but so many great coasters have opened since then, and I want to expand my horizons, so here we go. These are the best 1-2 punches around the world. There were so many good ones, I expanded this to be a top 20, but even then, I had to leave off so many good ones. So I'm sorry to parks like SeaWorld Orlando, Great Adventure, Port Aventura, Fiesta Texas, Dollywood, so many others. You didn't make the cut. I do have 5 honorable mentions, so let's run those down. Carowinds has one super elite coaster in Fury 325 and 3 other solid ones, but not sure which one to pick for the top 2. Thunder Striker is good, Copperhead Strike is good, but for this, I'd go with Afterburn, one of the better B&M inverts. Six Flags Over Georgia has the classic RMC Hybrid B&M Hyper combination. Goliath is one of the better B&M Hypers, but Twisted Cyclone is one of the lesser RMCs, even though it's still a lot of fun. Alton Towers has a lot to choose from, but I'm giving my honorable mention to Smiler and Nemesis. Smiler is a Gerstlauer Infinity that holds the world inversion record with 14, and Nemesis is one of the most praised B&M inverts, being built into the ground and having an insane terrain layout. Wallaby Holland has an Intamin Mini Hyper in Goliath and an RMC Hybrid in Untamed. Untamed gets great reviews, and I've heard mixed things about Goliath. Maybe people who have been here would put this on their list, but until I get there, I don't know for sure. Last one, Nagashima Spalan has a Morgan Giga and Steel Dragon 2000, and a massive RMC hybrid, Hakuge. Hakuge gets rave reviews, but it's hard to find anyone who loves Steel Dragon 2000, even with that 306-foot drop and over 8,000 feet of track, so it's close, but I had to leave it off. Number 20, Knott's Berry Farm, Ghost Rider, a CCI wooden coaster, an accelerator, an intimate accelerator. As someone who used to visit Knott's all the time, as long as this 1-2 punch was open, I'd be happy all day. Ghost Rider is one of my all-time favorite wooden coasters, having one of the great layouts ever. Accelerator doesn't have much of a layout, but it has my favorite launch of all time and an airtime-filled hop hat. Number 19, Thorpe Park, Hyperia, a Mock Rides Hyper, and Stealth, an intimate accelerator. This one is very similar to Knott's. You have a world-class coaster and a world-class launch. Hyperia just opened this year, the tallest coaster in the UK, 236 feet tall, full of twisting drops, airtime and hangtime as it winds around itself. Stealth holds the world record as the fastest accelerating coaster, 0 to 80 in 1.8 seconds. This one just hits a hill before going back to the station, but you can ride this all day just for the launch and the top hat. Number 18, Kentucky Kingdom, Lightning Run, a Chance Rides Hyper GTX, and Storm Chaser, an RMC iBox. For a park with only 5 coasters, they did an amazing job adding 2 small but powerful coasters after it reopened in 2014. The park had been closed since 2010 when Six Flags abandoned it, and when it reopened 4 years later, it debuted Lightning Run, only 100 feet tall but full of powerful ejector airtime. 2 years later, RMC came in to convert one side of the CCI Woody Twisted Twins into an iBox coaster. Just like Lightning Run, this is 100 feet tall and it's full of powerful ejector, also throwing in 2 inversions. These may be kinda redundant, but they're awesome, so it has to make the list. Number 17, Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Pantheon, an Intamin multi-launch, and Alpengeist, the B&M invert. Busch Gardens is one of those parks with multiple options, but these two represent some of the best of their kind. Pantheon has a swing launch with some extreme elements, a top hat, outer bank, and 2 hangtime-filled inversions. Alpengeist is the world's tallest B&M invert, 195 feet tall, 67 miles an hour, 6 inversions, and one of the most intense coasters in the country. Number 16, Six Flags Great America, Raging Bull, a B&M Hyper, and Goliath, an RMC Topper Track wooden coaster. This is similar to Over Georgia's top 2, a top-tier Hyper and a lower-tier RMC, but both the Great America's coasters are a step above. Raging Bull was one of B&M's original Hypers, more of a twister layout but not short in airtime, having one of the best drops in the back row you'll find anywhere. Goliath is 165 feet tall and has an 85-degree drop into a tunnel, hitting 72 miles an hour, 2 insane inversions, and even though it's short, it does not leave you disappointed. Number 15, Leesburg, Helix, a Mock Rides multi-launch, and Baldur, an Intamin prefabricated Woody. These are absolutely the 2 stars of the park. Helix opening in 2014 and traversing 7 inversions on the hillside. As of right now, my favorite coaster in Europe. Baldur was built for airtime, and nothing else but airtime. If you ride it warmed up and in the right seat, it's amazing. But if it carried a little more speed, this 1-2 punch could be a lot higher. Number 14, Kings Island, Diamondback, a B&M Hyper, and Mystic Timbers, a GCI wooden coaster. Kings Island has a big 4 or 5, but I picked these two because, in my books, Diamondback is the best hyper in America and Mystic Timbers is the best GCI in America. Diamondback runs out into the woods and the airtime just hits different. When you're in the back row, you're out of your seat pretty much the whole ride. Plus, it ends with a splashdown. Mystic Timbers is right next door, also going out into the woods, combining the chaos of a GCI twister with an airtime-filled out-and-back layout. It's GCI's best American design and it's not close. Number 13, Hershey Park, Wildcat's Revenge, an RMC Hybrid, and Skyrush, an Intamin Hyper. I have not ridden the new and improved Skyrush yet, that's coming soon. But I have heard enough from everyone who's ridden it and I trust the ride is good now. I don't think the layout is good enough to make this a top 10 coaster or anything like that, but I'll find out. 200 feet tall, 3,600 feet of track, and violent airtime hills. Wildcat's Revenge is the park's newest coaster, converting the old GCI Wildcat, 140 feet tall and 3,500 feet long, throwing in 4 inversions. This is a mid-tier RMC which knocks it down a bit, but even a mid-tier RMC is still a top shelf ride. Number 12, Hansa Park, Schwer des Karnen, a Gerstlauer Infinity, and Flug von Novgorod, a Gerstlauer Eurofighter. This park may have doubled up on the Gerstlauers, but they are very different. Karnen is over 200 feet tall with a vertical indoor drop, has a layout with giant non-inverting elements, ends with 1 inversion, and throws in a couple secrets in the mix. It's one of the most interesting coasters in the world. Then, you have Flug von Novgorod, not only well-themed by having a powerful rolling launch, getting you up to 62 miles an hour in 1.4 seconds, and ending with a vertical lift and a 97-degree drop. Both of these coasters combine intrigue with thrills and make a great 1-2 punch. Number 11, Silver Dollar City, Time Traveler, a Mock Rides Extreme Spinner, and Outlaw Run, an RMC Topper Track wooden coaster. Both of these were the first of their kind, and since then, the manufacturers have improved on their models, but these are still spectacular. Time Traveler starts with a vertical 90-foot drop, 3 inversions and 2 launches, all while spinning. Outlaw Run is a furious run through the woods, starting with a 162-foot drop and ending with a double barrel roll. To this day, it's still considered one of the best wooden coasters in the world. Number 10, Islands of Adventure, Velocicoaster, an Intamin Multi-Launch, an Incredible Hulk, a B&M Looper. Some may have chosen Hagrid's, the well-themed Intamin with 7 launches and a drop track, but I think Velocicoaster and Hulk are the 2 best coasters in the park. Velocicoaster is actually one of the best coasters in the world, having a good Jurassic Park theme, using 2 launches to get the train up to 70 miles an hour, and is full of spectacular elements that give elite airtime, hang time, and the Mosasaurus roll makes for a great finale. The Hulk starts with a tire-propelled launch into a 0G roll, going into a 7 inversion course that's one of the most intense rides in the country. This ride's so popular, the park chose to retrack the whole thing instead of tearing it down for a new ride. Number 9, Busch Gardens Tampa, Iron Gwazi, an RMC Hyper Hybrid, and Montu, a B&M Invert. There were lots of options at Busch Gardens. That includes Kumba, Cheetah Hunt, but Iron Gwazi is among the top RMCs ever built, and Montu is the best inverted coaster B&M's ever rolled out, at least in America. Iron Gwazi is one of the few hyper hybrids, 206 feet tall, 4,000 feet of track, and tears through its elements in a way that other RMCs just don't. Montu has a great 7 inversion layout, but it excels in using trenches, not only giving great visuals and foot choppers, but allowing the ride to tear into those elements with more speed, the Batwing being one of the most intense elements on any coaster anywhere. Number 8, Plopsaland Japan, Ride to Happiness, a Mock Rides Extreme Spinner, and Anubis the Ride, a Gerstlauer launch coaster. Ride to Happiness is the next generation of extreme spinner after Time Traveler. This one apparently being so much better, having 2 launches and 3,000 feet of track, spinning the whole time, and a lot of people's new number 1 since it opened in 2021. This joins Anubis, being the other star coaster since 2009, a layout very similar to Daredevil Dive at Six Flags Over Georgia, but having one of the most powerful launches you can imagine. It's a tiny launch track, but it flings a train up and over the 112-foot top hat, going into 3 inversions and almost 2,000 feet of track. Number 7, Phantasialand, Fly, a Vekoma Flying Dutchman, and Tern, an Intamin Multi-Launch. Both of these coasters at this elite German park are very well themed, not just in the queue, but throughout the ride. Fly is the world's first launch flying coaster, over 4,000 feet of track and 2 inversions, weaving through an entire village set up around the ride. Terran was also built into a new area called Klugheim, having 2 launches, 73 miles an hour, 4,300 feet of track, and weaving around the rocks. These are 2 big-time bucket list coasters. Number 6, King's Dominion, Project 305, an Intamin Giga, and Twisted Timbers, an RMC Hybrid. This 1-2 punch has a great mix of forces. Project 305 being 305 feet tall and reaching 90 miles an hour, almost a mile of track that tries to rip your head off and crushes you into your seat. On the other hand, Twisted Timbers spends all its time throwing you out of your seat, only 111 feet tall but focuses on nothing but airtime, except for those 3 inversions, including the first drop. Not all these 1-2 punches have a good contrast, but this might be the best contrast of them all. Number 5. Fuchikyu Highland, Aijanika, an SNS 4th Dimension coaster, and Takabisha, a Gerstlauer Eurofighter. Aijanika was the first SNS 4th Dimension coaster, 249 feet tall, 3 inversions, flipping on the side of the track the entire time. There's no wonder it's a lot of people's #1 coaster. Then you have Takabisha, maybe overlooked, but based on my experience on TMNT Shellraiser, this is a top tier coaster. 7 inversions, the first one in the dark. A powerful LSM launch, getting up to 62 miles an hour in 2 seconds. Huge inversions, and midway through, it takes you up 141 feet and drops you down at 121 degrees. This gets overlooked, but makes for a great 1-2 punch. Number 4. Cedar Point, Steel Vengeance, an RMC Hyper Hybrid, and Maverick, an Intamin Blitz coaster. Cedar Point is so loaded, you could go with a few options here. Steel Vengeance has to be one of them. The world's first Hyper Hybrid, 205 feet tall, 4 inversions, 5,700 feet of track. More airtime than any other coaster and my #1 overall. But then, you have rides like Magnum. That would be my pick, or Top Thrill 2, or Millennium Force. But I think the right pick here is Maverick, the coaster that proved that size doesn't matter, using an LSM lift and a 95-degree 100-foot drop to start a rapid-fire layout, sharp turns, ejector airtime. Then it stops and launches you out at 70 miles an hour. It's a very well-rounded and long ride, spanning over 4,400 feet. These two coasters are right next to each other in Frontier Town, so that just adds to the 1-2 punch. Number 3. Six Flags Magic Mountain, Twisted Colossus, an RMC Dueling Hybrid, and X2, an Aero 4th Dimension coaster. Magic Mountain is loaded with 20 coasters, but there's no doubt what their top 2 is. Some people love Twisted Colossus more. That's the airtime machine the park so desperately needed. Almost 5,000 feet of airtime, hang time, whip, weird angles. And if the ops time it right, you can duel the other track. Some people love X2 more. That's the original 4th Dimension coaster built by Aero. When it opened in 2002, it seemed like something out of a dream, starting with a face-first 215-foot drop and 3,600 feet of chaos. Number 2. Six Flags New England, Wicked Cyclone, an RMC Hybrid, and Superman the Ride, an Intamin Mega Coaster. For my money, America's best 1-2 punch. Wicked Cyclone is small but mighty, 109 feet tall but takes 3 laps around the course, full of 3 ridiculous inversions and some of the best airtime you'll see on any RMC. Superman the Ride has one of the best layouts of any coaster, 221-foot drop, 5,400 feet of track, a perfect mix of airtime and twister elements. And if they could just replace the lap bar with something better, this might be the best duo in the world. For now, it has to settle for just the best in America. Number 1. Energylandia, Zadra, an RMC Hyper Hybrid, and Hyperion, an Intamin Mega Coaster. Zadra showed us what RMC could do when they built something from the ground up and didn't have any restrictions. They went with a 206-foot tall, 4,300-foot long, 3-inversion masterpiece. And not just that, it's the best paced RMC in the world, so it's at the very top of my bucket list. Then you have Intamin's contribution, Hyperion. Again, showing what they can do with no land or money restrictions, starting with a 269-foot drop, 4,700 feet of track. Even a dive drop element that counts as an inversion, full of airtime going out and back. I think this 206-foot hybrid and this 269-foot mega coaster, together, pose the most formidable 1-2 punch around the world, and you can find it in Poland. That's a wrap on the world's best 1-2 punches. Again, there were so many great options that I left a lot of good ones off, so if you disagree or have any thoughts, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, and if you're new here and want to see more like this, please give me a sub. Also, check out my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you also happen to love baseball. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.